Let's look at Chapter 7, Lesson 5, Practice, Fractions of a Foot. Find the equivalent fractions to complete the patterns. So we need to first look at the number 1 that's filled out and see if we can't find a pattern that's going on. Now, 1/4 is equivalent or equal to 2/8. I need to figure out what I'm doing to the top of 1/4 to get 2, as well as what I'm doing to the bottom to 1/4 in order to get 8. Remember though that you're doing the exact same thing to the top as you do to the bottom. So I could say that I'm adding 1 plus 1 to get 2, but I'm not adding 4 plus 1 to get 8. So it's not adding or subtracting. I'm going to say that I'm going to be multiplying or dividing when finding equivalent fractions. In order to turn 1 into 2, I multiply by 2. 1 times 2 equals 2. 4 times 2 equals 8. We're going to do the same thing. How did I get 1/4 into 3/12? And I can think about that, and I know that 1 times 3 equals 3, and I know that 4 times 3 equals 12 to get 3/12. Now I'm going to do the same thing in order to get 4, and I don't know what the bottom number is. So I need to think 1 times what equals 4, and I know 1 times 4. So if I do it to the top, I have to do it to the bottom. 4 times 4 is 16. Now I have what times 4 to get 20, and I know 4 times 5 equals 20, and 1 times 5, because I have to do it to the top as well, equals 5. Now I have what equals 40. 4 times what equals 40, I know 4 times 10, and multiply the top. 1 times 10 is 10. Do the same thing where I have what times 1 equals 25, and I know 1 times 25 equals 25. So I need to multiply 4 times 25 since I did it to the top of it. 4 times 25 is 100. Now I need to look at 1,000, and 4 times what is going to equal 1,000. I could also think about 1,000 divided by 4 in order to find out 4 times what equals 1,000. And I know that I can divide it evenly and come up with an answer that 4 times 250 is going to equal 1,000. So 4 times 250 equals 1,000. I need to do 1 times 250 to get the numerator. Now you can see as the numbers went up for number 1, I multiplied in order to make it bigger. If for some reason the first fraction that you have is larger than the second one, you're not going to multiply, but you need to divide in order to make it smaller. So keep that in mind as you're doing numbers 2 and 3. Let's look at number 2. I have 2/3. I'm going to use this fraction in order to find the equivalent of the rest. So 3 times what equals 6, and I know 3 times 2, so I have to do that to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. So now I have 4/6. I can think about how I got 2 times what equals 6, and I know that it would have been times 3, and 3 times 3 equals the 9. Now I'm going to need to figure out 2 times what equals 20, and I know that that was 10, and 3 times what equals 30. Well, it's 10. Remember, what you do to the numerator, you have to do to the denominator. Let's look at 3 times what equals 60, and I know that 3 times 20 would equal 60. 3 times 2 is 6, and you add the 0. If I multiply the denominator by 20, I need to do it to the top. 2 times 20 is 40. I do the same thing. 3 times what is going to get me 90? Well, I know back here I did 3 times 3 would equal 9. So if I do 3 times 30, it equals 90. Do it to the numerator. 2 times 30 is going to equal 60. Now 2 times what equals 400? If you look back here at this one, I know that 2 times 2 equals 4 and 3 times 2 equals 6. So I'm going to multiply the 400 with 2 times 200 in order to get 400. Do it to the denominator, and I know that 3 times 2 is 6, and add 2 zeros. Now 3 times what equals 900? I know, looking back here, I had 3 times 3 equals 9, so 3 times 300 equals 900. Do it to the numerator, and I have 2 times 300. I have 2 times 3 is 6 with 2 zeros. Number 3 starts out with 5 and 25ths. So looking at this, I know that it's higher than the 1, so I'm going to need to divide for the first one. So in order for 5 to get to 1, I need to divide it by 5. Do the same to the bottom. 25 divided by 5 is going to be 5. Now I have 1/5. 1/5 is the smallest number that you're going to have, so we're going to use it in order to find the rest of the equivalent fractions. I have 1, and I got it to 10, and I know that I multiplied 1 times 10 in order to get that, and I have 5 times 10 equals 50. Going back to the original, we have 1, and it went to 25, so I have times 25, and I have 5 times 25. So 5 times 25 would be 125. Now I have 5 times what equals 100. I know that's 20. So I need to multiply 1 times 20 in order to get the top. And that is 20. 1 times what equals 15? I know that's 15. And I'm going to need to multiply 5 times 15 in order to get the denominator. And I know that that is 75. If you didn't know that, you could actually write it out to the side, 15 times 5, and work it out if you needed to do that. Now I have 1 times 6 in order to get 6. So multiply the bottom. 5 times 6 is 30. And I have 1 times 60 in order to get 60. And I need to multiply 5 times 60 in order to get my denominator. I know that 5 times 6 is 30, and I add the extra 0. Again, if you're not quick with your multiplication, you can write out the problems to the side. Number 4, a dozen can be evenly divided by 2, 3, or 4, but not by 5. Is the same statement true about 5 dozen? Explain. So I know that a dozen is 12, and I'm going to multiply it by 5, and I get 60. And I know that it can be divided by 5 because it ends in a 0, and any number that ends in 5 or 0 can be divided by 5. Morgan reads 4 pages in 10 minutes. How many pages can she read in 15 minutes? Well, first off, I need to figure out how many minutes it takes to read 1 page. So I'm going to divide 10 minutes by 4. I know it goes in 2 times, 8, subtract, and I get a remainder of 2. Now I can write a fraction, 2 whole minutes in 2/4 minutes. Remember, the numerator comes from your remainder, and your denominator comes from your divisor. This is actually reduced to 2.5. So for each page it takes 2.5 minutes. Well, in order to get from 10 to 15, I have 5 minutes, which means that it's 2.5 plus 2.5 minutes. So I could read 2 more pages, so 6 pages total. Make sure you show your work and have a written explanation for 4 and 5.